traveling at about 34,882 feet per second, heading for its splashdown site off the coast of San Diego, as you just heard from Megan Cruz on the deck of the USS John Murtha. Splashdown once again under those three main parachutes is expected at 7:07 and 8 seconds p.m. Central Time, 5:07 p.m. Pacific Time, 2.5 hours before sunset. The actual total distance traveled for Integrity from launch to splashdown is estimated at 694,481 statute miles. Now that includes the first high elliptical Earth orbit following launch that enabled Integrity to move to 43,000 miles above the Earth at its apogee and enabling a 24-hour period of systems checkouts before the flight control team here and the mission management team gave approval for Integrity to conduct its translunar injection that propelled it on its way to the moon and its historic lunar flyby. So the total distance we expect this vehicle to have traveled at splashdown, 694,481 statute miles. With everything proceeding on track and on time aboard Integrity, the vehicle system's in excellent shape as the Earth grows larger in the field of view. Let's go back to the USS John Murtha and Megan Cruz, who is standing by.
Rob, welcome back. Again, we are out in the Pacific Ocean, staged just about 6.5 miles from where we expect Orion to splash down now in just over an hour. How exciting. And the weather, awesome conditions here. I know you see some wind blowing around my hair, but really nothing to speak of when it comes to having to recover our astronauts, as well as no waves here, really. So yeah, we're expecting a really great day. Also, hopefully, some really great views. You can see behind me that some of the clouds are starting to break up, so that's really exciting. And now, of course, this ship has a lot of people ready and excited to welcome our crew back home, including Dr. Rick Schuring here. He is a NASA flight surgeon. Great to have you here, Rick.
You too, Megan. It is a blessing to be out here this day with our teams. We've trained 3 years for this nonstop with the U.S. Navy and along with EGS, and we've so looked forward to this day. And you know, just by God's grace, everything's parting, the skies and everything. The crew's doing great. Looking forward to coming back, and our teams are ready. So this is one of those days you've dreamt about, and now it's finally here, and we're ready, and just thankful to be a part of it.
Yeah, and you play a really integral role. When was the last time you spoke to the crew, and how are they feeling in this last hour before splashdown?
Sure. Yeah, so the crew woke up, when they splashed down, they were woken up about 8.5 hours ago. Me and my fellow crew surgeons, Doctors Chris Haas and Rafi Kumjian from the Canadian Space Agency, spoke with them about 6.5 hours ago just to double check on how they were doing, if there's any medical issues, you know, how they slept, and then kind of go over their landing day protocol for their medications, for what we call a fluid load, to try to replace some of the fluid and electrolytes that they've lost with just a normal space adaptation. Once they got to space, they kind of have to replace some of that fluid to help them with the whole landing kind of readaptation to 1G, which they haven't done for the last 10 days. And then just kind of let them know how things are going to play out, you know, out with the open water teams all the way until we finally get to the med deck. So they were very pumped up, very hurried though. They had a lot of cabin configuration, a lot of things to get ready. So they're excited, but also very focused on the job that they had to do. So like again, we've trained a long time for this, and we're ready.
And you said some medications. I mean, those are kind of just to mitigate the effects of, obviously, their more than 695,000 mile journey back to Earth. It's just like anti-nausea medication, right?
Yeah, exactly, Megan. The you know, astronauts are very healthy, fortunately, and even when they come back in reentry, you know, the human system is very kind of dynamic. It has to readapt very quickly, and one of the most common responses they get is just some stomach awareness, to some nausea, even to some vomiting. And you know, with our crews that land out in Karagana, the Soyuz crews or our SpaceX crews, you know, they all kind of experience the same thing. This will be the first time we're landing in water since December 1972, and I worked with all the Apollo astronauts years ago, and they all told me that, landing in the water, especially in the Pacific, can be very provocative. So we take steps to give them medicines to really mitigate some of that nausea, vomiting, help them feel a little bit better, and also sometimes just use a little anti-inflammatory medicine just to help with coming back to one Earth, or 1G. The effects of microgravity, especially as you age and you have a little arthritis, you feel great in microgravity, and everyone kind of curses coming back to the ground like, oh, dang, 1G, but so that helps a little bit. But for the most part, the main thing is just replacing that fluid and then trying to help them with that transition back to 1G, and then we're ready to go.
Yeah, and their health is assessed almost immediately after they splash down.
Yeah, so we have Dr. Jesse Wang, and we have our independent duty corpsmen, who are the Navy version of paramedics, extremely highly trained, highly experienced Navy medics and divers who will go out there, open the capsule about 25, 28 minutes after splashdown and do the first initial assessment. So Jesse and his team will go out there and look at each crew, kind of do their assessments, get vital signs, report back to Drs. Hansen, Kumji, and I, and back in the med bay, let them know how they're doing. And then, if they've got the normal kind of space adaptation kind of things, we expect that they're good to go on that. If anything, didn't go the way we want, they're all prepared for that as well. And Jesse and his team, this is their full-time job, taking care of, sailors and folks who might be injured. We don't expect any injuries, but coming back, going 25,000 miles an hour down to, 20, miles an hour is still a dynamic process. I've heard it described as, kind of like a car crash. And then the crew will be ready to go, and Jesse and his team will make that transition to get them out to the front porch, do assessments on them again, call it to our med bay, and then once we have that and they're all good to go and the crew's feeling okay, we'll hoist them up in the helos. It's about a 3-minute flight back to the flight deck, and that's where me and the astronaut chief, Scott Tingle, will actually meet them. I'll get eyes on them, make sure they're all good, just take very slow transitions, and then one by one we'll either get them out with the SMTs, the SAR med techs under each arm, just kind of just walking very slowly to med bay, which actually helps them acclimate back to 1G. Or if they really don't have their sea legs back yet, then we might put them in what we call a stair chair, which will be right behind them, and then just very slowly kind of get them back into med bay to start our full assessments for the team.
Yeah, so a really great team here to support them as soon as they get back, and also all throughout the mission, of course. You talked a little bit about this, but obviously, we have seen astronauts return from the International Space Station for over 25 years, so we kind of know that that journey, how it affects the body. But yes, we're talking about humans returning from the moon for the first time since 1972. How is this different from your perspective?
So it's different in one very significant respect. On Apollo, for exercise, they had something called the Apollo Exergenia, which was basically just a little canister with some ropes, and they would have some resistance and kind of do that. And the Apollo astronauts really liked that. They liked the ability to exercise, because you decondition from a musculoskeletal standpoint, you lose your strength and your stamina very quickly. We had something called the Orion flywheel, which was able to impart much greater loads in terms of resistance, so they're able to do squats, deadlifts, different things, not dissimilar to what the ISS astronauts do, but with a lot less room to do it. And they also did rowing activities for cardiovascular health, and the crews loved it. But for the lunar crews, the future lunar crews, maintaining that physical conditioning, which our astronaut strength and conditioning rehabilitation specialists, affectionately known as the ACERs, back in Houston, really work hard to get them in the best shape they're going to, have to be in to get to the moon. That device hopefully will maintain that. And Apollo only had about a 4.3-day journey to the moon. Our astronauts are going to have about a 10 to 14-day journey. Right. So maintaining that physical fitness, that strength and stamina is going to be crucial for the success of being able to do those very physically demanding lunar EVAs. Right. So we're very excited about what the astronauts have said about the device and what they have to say about the role exercise plays, going to the moon. And also the mental benefit.
Sure.
They just really like sweating, breaking the sweat, and actually just feeling like, they're just getting a workout.
Right.
So
thank you so much, Rick. I really appreciate it. I know they're going to be in good hands, so we'll let you get back to it. Thank you so much.
Megan, thanks for the time.
Back to you, Rob.
Okay, Megan, back here in Mission Control in Houston. Everything is moving along in order. This view of Reid Wiseman on the left, Victor Glover on the right. We have good suit leak checks. Everything aboard integrity is in excellent shape. The vehicle, with the Earth growing larger and larger in the field of view, we're now just about 8,200 nautical miles away from Earth and closing in for a splashdown just 1 hour and 5 minutes from now.
Integrity, just under a minute till your GPS maneuver initiates, and both GPS units look eager to acquire.
Outstanding. Seats 3 and 4 are working on seat strap in now.
Houston copies.
Once again, as we start to close in on some of the major milestones, the first one coming up in just 31 minutes.
And Integrity, just confirming the LCG gas trap was able to be closed out.
Affirmative.
Copy.
Crew module, service module separation scheduled just 31 minutes from now. The key point of interest, of course, will be the performance of Integrity's heat shield during its high-speed entry back into Earth and the peak heating that is expected around the spacecraft of some 4,000 to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. On Artemis 1, as I think most folks know by now, we flew a trajectory known as a skip entry, in which we performed an initial dip into the atmosphere to bleed off some energy. Then we skipped out of the atmosphere and dipped back into the atmosphere before splashing down in the Pacific. But after the mission was over with, we noticed unexpected liberation of some of the charring effects on the heat shield known as AVCOAT. Before the flight, we had an opportunity to sit down and talk with Entry Flight Director Rick Henfling to get a perspective on what this all means and how the mission was redesigned to try to protect Integrity's heat shield to a higher extent. Let's take a look at that interview.
Returning from the moon is a lot different than deorbiting from low Earth orbit. When we return from the moon, we expect to achieve velocities upwards of 36,000 feet per second. And in order to slow down to a nice, graceful splashdown in the Pacific Ocean, the flight crew is going to experience between 3 and 4 times the force of Earth's gravity. On Artemis 1, pressure buildup inside the char layer of the heat shield resulted in the char losses we saw. NASA established a Tiger team whose job was to investigate the cause of the problem and then make recommendations on how to fly the Artemis 2 mission safely and successfully. And so for Artemis 2, we are going to fly a profile that ensures the spacecraft will not see that same type of pressure profile. And so the char losses seen on Artemis 2 will not be like the ones that we saw on Artemis 1.
Rick Henfling indicated that the orientation of the spacecraft and the shortening of the distance of transit to the splashdown zone from the point of entry interface when we reach the top of the Earth's atmosphere, which will be coming up at 6:53 and 30 seconds p.m. Central Time, should do the trick in minimizing the deleterious forces against that heat shield that were noticed on the Artemis 1 mission.
We think we see a beautiful sunrise over the west coast of Australia.
We copy.
Commander Reid Wiseman reveling in his final hour in space on this mission as Integrity is passing over the southwest coast of Australia now at an altitude of some 7,600 nautical miles. That will begin the southwest and northeasterly transit across the Pacific Ocean. Let's talk a little bit more about some of the highlights and some of the numbers associated with the points of interest here. We are 27 and a half minutes away from crew module, service module separation. That will be followed about 3.5 minutes later by the raise burn that we've discussed, a 19-second burn of Integrity's thrusters to fine-tune its angle of attack as it enters the Earth's atmosphere. Entry interface is scheduled 47 and a half minutes from now. That's the point at which we will reach the top of the Earth's atmosphere, traveling about 34,882 feet per second at an altitude of 400,000 feet. Just 24 seconds after entry interface, we will begin a blackout period of 6 minutes in duration at 6:53 and 54 seconds p.m. Central Time. Now, right about 10 seconds after the blackout period begins, we are expected to reach peak speed, which would be 24,661 miles an hour. That'll be about 103 miles an hour short of the velocity record set by the Apollo 10 astronauts, Tom Stafford, Gene Cernan, and John Young, when they returned from the moon on the Apollo 10 mission in 1969. That blackout period is expected to last 6 minutes in duration. At 6:54 and 52 seconds p.m. Central Time, we'll reach our peak heating period of about 4,000 to 5,000 degrees while we're in a communications blackout from Integrity and its astronauts. That blackout should end at 6:59 and 55 seconds p.m. Central Time, at which point we expect to regain communications with the crew. Capcom Jackie Mahaffey here in the flight control room will be talking to the crew, calling them, and we'll await a response from the crew as they come out of that blackout period. And at that point, their altitude will be just 157,000 feet above the Earth, traveling at 13,000 feet per second, with a range to splashdown of just 147 nautical miles. From that point on, the next key series of events will be the deployment of a series of parachutes that we discussed before. First, the forward bay cover chute deploy that will pull the forward bay cover away from the top of Integrity, followed by drogue chute deploy, and then the main chute deploy that's expected at 7:04 and 44 seconds p.m. Central Time. That will begin the gentle descent of Integrity towards its splashdown at just a velocity of just 19 miles an hour, and that will begin the recovery operations that you just heard Megan Cruz discuss with her folks on the USS John Murtha. All of Integrity's systems in great shape. The crew is suited up. Leak checks complete as we stand by for the next major milestone, which will be the crew module service module separation just 24.5 minutes from now. All of the activities from the start of entry interface to the point of splashdown will be quite rapid fire, just 13.5 minutes from the point at which we begin descent into the Earth's atmosphere till splashdown. And just to show you, as Rick Shearing, the flight surgeon, alluded to in his interview with Megan Cruz, all of this happens to decelerate the vehicle from traveling around Mach 33 to just 19 miles an hour at splashdown. All of that happening in just 13.5 minutes. But the vehicle and the parachutes are all designed to support all of that, so we'll be standing by to report all that to you in sequential fashion as these milestones are ticked off and as we hear from the crew during its entry back into the Earth's atmosphere, and ultimately when they emerge from the blackout period, and at that point we'll be just minutes away from splashdown. So with all of those preparations ongoing, we can return here briefly for another report from the USS John P. Murtha and Megan Cruz. Megan? And we'll regain that communication with the USS John P. Murtha just momentarily. In the meantime, everything is on track aboard Integrity. The flight control team here in Houston, led by Entry Flight Director Rick Henfling. The voice you will hear talking to the crew is that of Jackie Mahaffey. She will be reporting everything to the crew and receiving their reports as they enter the Earth's atmosphere for their 13.5-minute plunge back into the atmosphere for splashdown off the coast of San Diego. Now we have the ship back with us and Megan Cruz aboard the USS John P. Murtha. Megan?
11 balloon, right? Rob. Yeah, the excitement is really building here on the ship. I'm watching right now one of the weather balloons being lofted up from the ship. Again, weather balloons, very important for us to make sure that we are tracking the right kind of weather and also the data that's needed for what's called our Sasquatch team. Again, it's a team out of NASA that basically makes sure that the debris that comes off of Orion, again, some of those pieces of the parachute system, make sure that they don't fall on us here in the sea, and also our aerial assets, our folks in helicopters. So watching that float away right now. But with me right now is Captain Eric Kenny. He's the commanding officer of the John P. Murtha naval ship. Thank you so much for being here. There are so many moving parts that you have to keep an eye on.
That's absolutely right, yeah. But first of all, on behalf of the crew of USS John P. Murtha, Megan, thanks for having me on today. Happy to tell you what we're doing and excited to get the interview started.
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't we actually take a look at the flight deck here? We'll start there. Basically, we also, while watching this weather balloon float away, we notice all 4 helicopters leave the flight deck. We now have an empty flight deck. We had 2 imagery helos as well as the 2 crew helicopters that will go recover the crew. This is just one of the many things that, again, our ship of 550 people, it's something that you oversee as commanding officer.
Yeah, absolutely. Every commanding officer, I would say really every naval service member, our priority is always safety. And as the commanding officer, I take that as one of my primary roles here on board. Mission accomplishment is important, safety always. So my day really has, I would say my message to the crew has sort of changed over the past 24 hours. As we're leading up to today, we've been building up the excitement and motivating the team for the training that we've executed. But really over the past 24 hours, now I'm trying to get us to slow down a little bit. Trust our training, right? Don't believe all the hype. Don't believe everything that's going on. Just let's trust what we've done to get to this point, and if we do that, we'll be successful today.
Mm-hmm. And also part of the big success is obviously the coordination between NASA and the U.S. military. How does it feel being able to support the human space program we have?
Yeah, I mean, since 1959 with Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, the history between NASA and the Navy has been in lockstep. But like any other skill, if you don't practice it regularly, that skill atrophies. So we've had a few decades off from that. But, over the past 4 or 5 years, really with this ship over the past year, we've constantly trained and working for this moment right here. Building up the hype, but to get to this point today, to be able to trust in all the training we've done. We've worked with, working with NASA, the Air Force, the medical team, dive team. You want to talk about high-performance organizations coming together, working in unison? We are seeing that here on board the USS John P. Murtha, and I can't be more proud of all the work everyone's doing.
Yeah, you had some great words this morning saying just that, again, that it's really nice to see everybody working together and so excited. I mean, you just became the commanding officer of this ship back in February. How does it personally feel for you to be a part of this historic moment today?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I'd say any opportunity to command any warship in the United States Navy is a tremendous honor, is a pinnacle of any naval officer's career. That being said, as my change of command was approaching, and I realized that Artemis was going to be in the window here, to say that I'm humbled and honored to be here is an understatement. What really just excites me is the opportunity to see this crew, who has been training so hard over the past year plus, come together. It is what inspires me. Listening to NASA and the ownership and pride they take. They make my crew better. I think we're making NASA better together. That synergy is something that I'm happy to see and hopefully take forward with me in my career.
Yeah, it's all about partnerships. We couldn't do it without you, and we couldn't have gotten to the moon without our international partners as well. So thank you so much, Captain. It was really great to have you here today.
Thanks, Megan.
Awesome. All right, Rob, back to you.
Thank you, Megan. Back here in Mission Control in Houston. We just had a quick view of the crew. We'll get that view back, and there they are again. Here in Mission Control, the entry team of flight controllers led by Rick Henfling and Jackie Mahaffey serving as the spacecraft communicator. We have just handed over communications links from the Deep Space Network that we communicated with the crew through from the time of the translunar injection burn back on April 2nd. We've just handed back to the Tracking and Data Relay satellite system. as we prepare for the crew module, service module separation that will take place just 17 minutes from now. With the Earth looming in front of Integrity as it barrels back for a splashdown of the Pacific just 50 minutes from now, we're just 5,700 nautical miles from splashdown. Just one other quick note about the comparison from the Artemis 1 entry profile to the Artemis 2 entry profile and how that is serving as a extra layer of protection for Integrity's heat shield. The Artemis 1 entry had an entry range of some 3,178 nautical miles, a very long downtrack, and a very longer period of exposure to heat loads than we're experiencing tonight. It also had that skip entry profile that we discussed earlier, dipping into the Earth's atmosphere, then back out, then back in. It was about 20 minutes of exposure.
Integrity, Houston, comm check on TDRS.
Jackie, we have it loud and clear on TDRS.
We have you the same.
And there's one of the weather balloons being deployed from the USS John P. Murtha. So the Artemis 1 entry had the vehicle...
The update on GPS, we haven't seen it track in yet.
Reid, we are watching. We are starting to get into the window where they may start acquiring, so should be within the next 10 minutes.
Okay, sounds good. We're holding at step 17 and getting ready for CM-RCS hot fire.
And that exchange indicating that we are expecting to acquire data from the GPS system on board. That'll be a navigational tool that will basically tell Integrity's computers that they're on track down the center line of the corridor for the entry interface that will lead them to their splashdown point. Once again, the Artemis 1 entry exposed the heat shield for about 20 minutes of peak heating. For Artemis 2, we're going to reach a downtrack distance of 1,701 nautical miles from the point of entry interface with just 14 minutes of duration. And it's basically a different angle of attack, a little bit steeper angle of attack that will protect the heat shield from excessive heat loads. So that is the difference between Artemis 1 and Artemis 2, all designed into this mission to gather data to protect the heat shield, since the Artemis 3 mission and beyond will have a different designed heat shield that will allow that skip entry type of profile to be resumed for all of the future missions coming back from the south pole of the moon when we initiate lunar landings. So we've handed over to the Tracking and Data Relay Satellite System. That's where we'll have communications for the rest of the flight. Just to give you some time hacks here, we're 13.5 minutes away from crew module, service module separation, and just 17 minutes away from the raise burn, that 19-second firing of the thrusters that will basically be the final fine-tuning of the angle of attack for Integrity as it enters the Earth's atmosphere. And once again, a dueling box view of some of the assets that are involved in recovery operations today. The
Integrity, cabin configured, all crew suited and seated.
Houston, copy.
That confirmation from Reid Wiseman aboard Integrity, as you see the assets being deployed to the splashdown zone. At the time of splashdown, we expect the John P. Murtha to be about 5 miles away from Integrity, keeping a safe distance until we are sure that the vehicle is in the water and upright, and that it is in a good configuration system-wide for the recovery teams to begin to approach the vehicle to erect that inflatable raft.
2 minutes to CM RCS warm-up hot fire.
We're ready.
That call from spacecraft communicator Jackie Mahaffey indicating that we're 2 minutes away from a quick burst of the reaction control system. Thrusters, that will be a hot fire test prior to the separation of the crew module from the service module. The European service module has performed flawlessly throughout this flight. Everything, all the burns that had been prescribed for that service module have been executed on time and without a problem. There is the European flight control room that has overseen the manufacturing, the design of the European service module. They deserve quite a bit of credit on this mission for not only propelling the Integrity and its astronauts toward the moon, but also conducting the fine-tuning of its trajectory to bring it to this point where we are dead spot on down the middle of the corridor trajectory-wise to bring Integrity down for its splashdown in the Pacific just 44 minutes from now. What you're looking at is a computer-generated visualization based on real-time telemetry from Integrity, currently traveling about 16,000 miles an hour. Integrity traveling about 16,000 miles an hour.
For the prop cautions, we're taking a look.
Copy that.
Now just about 5,100 miles from Earth. Splashdown scheduled 43 minutes from now. We're just 9.5 minutes away from the crew module service module separation. We are confirming.
Integrity, we are assessing details, but so far looks like a good hot fire.
Looks good on board, Jackie. Thank you.
And Jackie Mahaffey took the words out of my mouth. I was just about to say that we had a good hot fire test of the thrusters in advance of the crew module service module separation that's coming up just 8.5 minutes from now. This will begin the period in which we will have rapid-fire succession of critical activities on board that will lead to entry interface just 28 minutes from now, where the vehicle will enter the Earth's atmosphere at an altitude of 400,000 feet. The time of entry interface, 6:53 and 30 seconds p.m. Central Time. Integrity's astronauts were awakened at mid-morning to begin their entry preparations. And propulsion officer now reports a good hot fire test in preparation for the crew module service module separation. We're now inside 41 minutes until splashdown.
Integrity Houston, we have confirmed a good CMRCS hot fire. And although we are not seeing GPS acquired yet, you can skip the troubleshooting steps in 157 for now.
Integrity copies.
That GPS discussion indicating that we will be acquiring navigational data for Integrity through the Global Positioning System equipment on board. We just don't have it yet, but we will. All of Integrity's systems are in great shape to support its high-speed entry into the Earth's atmosphere. It, once again, will reach a peak speed of 24,661.21 miles an hour.
Your call, GPS. We at least have GPS 1 looking good on board.
We are confirming.
The guidance, navigation, and control officer here in Mission Control confirming that we have good lock on GPS data. We are on a communications link now through the tracking and data relay satellite system. Now, following splashdown, we're going to lose that link and go to what's called a VLDR, a very low data rate communications link, so that we can talk to the crew inside Integrity as they are on the water.
Integrity, confirm we do see good GPS.
We do too, especially GPS 1 is accepting in nav channels 1 and 3.
That GPS data is basically telling Integrity's onboard computers its position relative to the Earth, but its trajectory and its orientation according to flight dynamics and the guidance, navigation, and control officer is spot on. We have now armed the pyros for the crew module service module separation coming up less than 5 minutes from now. Once again, just 10 seconds after entry interface, we will see Integrity reaching its peak speed of 24,661.21 miles per hour. That will be just seconds before we begin a 6-minute blackout period.
Integrity Houston, your vehicle is in a good config for CM-SM SEP and go for CM raise.
Houston, we see the same on board and copy go for CM raise.
That CM raise referred to as the slight firing of 19 seconds by Integrity's thrusters with a change in velocity of 9.9 feet per second, a slight nudge of the aft end of the vehicle so that it's tilted a bit upward, providing the final angle of attack as the vehicle enters the Earth's atmosphere, this being the mitigating factor that will reduce heat loads on the heat shield as we reach a point downrange from the start of entry interface, some 1,701 nautical miles to the splashdown site. Integrity systems in excellent shape. We are currently 3,300 nautical miles left in this mission. Splashdown scheduled 36 minutes, 39 seconds from now.
Integrity Houston, for the 2 enabled prop cautions, what happened is while the thrusters were firing, multiple pressure sensors on each of the strings diverged a bit from each other. Those limits look to be set pretty tight. We think it could happen again when the thrusters fire in the future, so we are going to suppress those messages.
We concur with suppress, not inhibit. Thank you.
That exchange between Jackie Mahaffey, our Capcom for tonight, and Reid Wiseman aboard Integrity, indicating basically to ignore sensor data. All of Integrity's systems are in good shape. Now, coming up on about 90 seconds till the crew module, service module separation. All quiet here in Mission Control as we enter the most critical phase of the completion of this flight. All of the preparatory activities leading up to the vehicle entering the Earth's atmosphere just 21 minutes from now. Coming up on 1 minute. Mark, 1 minute till crew module, service module separation. And we have confirmation of crew module, service module separation, and a great view, albeit momentarily.
Houston, good step on board.
Houston copies and concurs.
The European service module now separated from Integrity, a job well done.
Integrity, no action for the 4 CDH cautions. Those are SM related, not applicable.
Integrity.
So, with Integrity now flying free on its own for the remaining 32 minutes of this mission, next up, the raise burn, a 19-second firing of Integrity's thrusters.
Good GPS 2.
Integrity copies, good GPS 2.
Coming up on the 2-minute mark until the raise burn. Again, this is the final tweaking of the orientation of Integrity to put it in the right angle, if you will, the angle of attack that it will fly in during its entrance into the Earth's atmosphere. Entry interface now just 18 minutes, 25 seconds away. This is a visualization, but driven by real-time telemetry. This is the maneuvering of Integrity to the raise burn orientation. Just 2,800 miles from Earth.
Houston, we got a great view of the European service module out the window with the sun hitting the side and the solar rays and the NASA worm right there. It's a beautiful looking machine.
Roger.
And we have completed the maneuver to the raise burn orientation, 1 minute away from the raise burn. And the crew module raise burn is underway, a 19-second firing of the thrusters, and we have a completion of the burn.
Integrity, good. CM raise burn. Your flight path angle is within limits.
Integrity copies. Looks good on board, Jackie.
So the final maneuver is now complete. Our trajectory for a splashdown in the Pacific 29 minutes from now is set and will not be amended any further. And we have the right angle of attack to mitigate any excessive heat loads on the vehicle during entry interface.
Integrity Houston, a heads up about comm coverage. When you perform the 180 roll, for the first minute or so in that attitude, we expect about a minute LOS.
We copy.
So for those who are watching the series of events coming up, we will enter the first traces of Earth's atmosphere 14 minutes, 45 seconds from now. 6:53 and 30 seconds is what is pegged for entry interface at an altitude of 400,000 feet, traveling at approximately 34,800 feet per second, range to touchdown or splashdown 1,701 nautical miles. 24 seconds after entry interface, we will enter a 6-minute blackout period in which we will lose communications with the crew. This is expected due to the buildup of plasma around the vehicle. That's an ionization effect due to the collision, if you will, of the velocity of the spacecraft with the friction of the Earth's atmosphere. That 6-minute blackout is expected to begin at 6:53 and 54 seconds p.m. Central Time. During that period of time, we will reach our peak speed of 24,661 miles per hour. That comes just short, based on unofficial data from the flight dynamics officer right now, will come just short of the velocity record set by Apollo 10 of 24,791 miles per hour in 1969. We expect peak heating on the vehicle at 6:54 and 52 seconds p.m. Central Time, a minute and 22 seconds into entry interface. At that point, we will be just 204,000 feet above the Earth, traveling at 33,000 feet per second. The blackout period is expected to last 6 minutes. We expect that blackout period to end at 6:59 and 55 seconds p.m. Central Time. From the end of the blackout period until splashdown, it is just 7 minutes, at which point we'll start deploying the series of parachutes to slow integrity down to an ultimate splashdown velocity of just 19 miles an hour.
We see the same, waiting for the 180 rolls.
The parachute deployment sequence, once again, will come in several segments, but in rapid-fire succession.
And we have a great view of the moon out window, too. Looks a little smaller than yesterday.
Guess we'll have to go back.
Reid Wiseman and Jackie Mahaffey exchanging discussion on a view of the moon that Integrity's astronauts are seeing in the final minutes of this mission that will be completed with splashdown just 25 minutes from now. 3 forward bay cover parachutes will be used to pull the forward bay cover off the top of the vehicle. Then 2 drogue parachutes will be deployed to slow and stabilize the crew module during its descent, followed by 3 pilot parachutes that will lift and deploy the main parachutes from the forward bay. The final sequence will have 3 main parachutes deployed. These will be 116 feet in diameter, each main parachute approximately 265 feet long when reefed. The parachutes will ultimately slow Integrity down from its peak speed of almost 33 times the speed of sound to a gentle 19 miles an hour at splashdown. The vehicle is now currently in a roll to the proper attitude for entry interface. Our trajectory is right on according to flight dynamics. Integrity is on a trajectory from southwest and northeast across the Pacific Ocean, descending at a rate of 15,000 feet per second. Range to touchdown 4,300 nautical miles, all the systems in excellent shape.
Integrity, Orion in the EI roll 180 attitude.
Looks good on board, Jackie.
This view out of one of Integrity's windows. We had a call for 3 good barrows. Those are barometric pressure sensors that feed altitude and rate of descent information to Integrity's computers that will trigger the parachute deployment sequence. We are less than 9 minutes away from entry interface, 22 minutes from splashdown. You can see the reflection of one of the crew members in the window. Out in the Pacific, the weather conditions remain go. Just a few clouds, some scattered clouds, winds at 10 knots, wave heights just about 4 feet. A gentle day in the Pacific for the homecoming of Integrity's astronauts.
Integrity back in EI attitude.
We see the same on board, Jackie. Houston, purge is complete. Crew and vehicle are configured for entry.
Houston copies.
And we're in step 37, transferring nav state to BFS. And Houston, in instruction 509, we are not below 0.2.
Integrity, no action required.
Integrity.
Now 6 minutes away from entry interface, we will hit the first traces of Earth's atmosphere at an altitude of 400,000 feet, traveling about 34,882 feet per second. Range to splashdown at that point will be 1,701 nautical miles. And once again, just a reminder, some 24 seconds after entry interface, we do expect to lose communications with the vehicle and the crew during a 6-minute blackout period when a plasma shield will build up around the spacecraft due to the ionization, due to heating effects. And Flight Dynamics has just confirmed we will have a blackout period of exactly 6 minutes in duration. And once again, that's due to the fact that a plasma buildup around the vehicle will prevent communications and data, so we will not be able to talk to the crew members at that time, nor will we receive data here in the flight control room.
Houston, everything is looking good on board. Just confirm no pre-EI downloads.
Houston concurs.
That blackout period to begin at 6:53 and 54 seconds p.m. Central Time, and again will last about 6 minutes in duration. We're 4 minutes away from entry interface. This view from Integrity as it crosses from southwest to northeast across the Pacific Ocean, 3 minutes from entry interface. "16.5 minutes till splashdown." The USS John P. Murtha and the recovery team is on station and in position, as are the airborne imagery assets that we hope to receive imagery from as Artemis enters the Earth's atmosphere and through parachute deployment. All of Integrity's systems are in great shape. The crew is ready to complete its mission just 15.5 minutes from now. All of the activities today have gone off in perfect fashion. No issues with the vehicle, no issues with the crew. And the weather at the splashdown site is go. Coming up on 1 minute until entry interface. Mark 1 minute until entry interface. 1 minute, 20 seconds until the expected start of our 6-minute blackout.
Integrity, 1 minute to a 6-minute blackout.
Integrity.
Ten seconds till entry interface. And we have crossed the threshold, now entering the Earth's atmosphere. We're at 400,000 feet, traveling 34,800 feet per second. Time to splash down, 13 minutes, 10 seconds. And as predicted, we've entered our communications blackout. This will be a 6-minute blackout period. No voice, no data from the crew. We're 30 seconds away from the anticipated point of peak heating on the vehicle, where temperatures will rise to about 4,000 to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. This is the true test of our trajectory. And from the G5 aircraft in the vicinity of the splashdown zone, this view of integrity. So that pinpoint of light shows the vehicle as it enters the period of peak heating in the Earth's atmosphere, the first tug of gravity being felt by Integrity's astronauts since their launch back on April 1st. Four and a half minutes until the end of the blackout period. Time to splash down, 11 minutes, 33 seconds. The landing and support officer reports that the P-3 has acquisition on Integrity. Three and a half minutes left in this blackout period. This is a visualization of the plasma buildup around the spacecraft and the repelling of that heat on Integrity's heat shield. Flight Dynamics reports that airborne assets in the vicinity of the splashdown zone do have a visual on Integrity. Still 2 minutes and 40 seconds left in our blackout period. Time to splashdown, 9 minutes, 35 seconds. Multiple airborne assets as part of the recovery team all have visuals on integrity. And the WB-57 flying in the splashdown zone also has a visual. And the Navy helos also have visuals. We're still in the blackout period. Still do not have communications from the crew. We're standing by for communications from the crew. We should be out of the blackout period less than a minute from now. We are now processing data from integrity. Landing and support officer reports the small boats are en route to the splashdown target zone. Passing through 150,000 feet, our trajectory is perfect. We're getting intermittent views of integrity. Still waiting to establish voice communication.
Integrity, Houston, comm check, post-blackout.
Houston, Integrity, we have you loud and clear.
Your trajectory is nominal, and your recovery teams have visual.
Guidance looks good.
No action for the enabled internal camera controller fail.
Big cheers from the viewing room here in Mission Control as voice communication reestablished with Commander Reid Wiseman. For America and a waiting world, Integrity is 5.5 minutes away from coming home. Passing 100,000 feet now. Range to splashdown 19 nautical miles.
Integrity, impact to the camera controller fail is no Cab 1 views of the chutes.
Integrity.
We're processing good data through the GPS system. A good view of Integrity, time to splashdown 4.5 minutes. And a view of integrity from the WB-57. We're at 50,000 feet. The pyros are armed for forward bay cover jettison. And there go the first series of parachutes, and we're on drogues.
And Houston, we're visual 2 drogues out the window.
2 good drogue shoots. Next up.
We copy, we see them.
Next up, the deployment of pilot parachutes that will pull the main chutes out. Time to splash down 3 minutes and 10 seconds. Perfect descent rate according to flight dynamics.
Good rates on 2 drogues.
We see the same on board.
Passing through 10,000 feet, still on drogues. Main chute deploy. We're at 5,000 feet. Search and recovery beacon has been activated on integrity. And we have 3 good main chutes. Good 3 main chutes, good reefing, good descent rate.
Good rates, and we see 3 good-looking parachutes. Integrity. Cabin pressure indicates no need for hydrazine checks.
Integrity copies.
This is a perfect descent for integrity. Its crew sounding hale and hearty on board. Time to splash down 1 minute, 15 seconds. Integrity about to complete a journey spanning 694,481 miles from its launch from the Kennedy Space Center back on April 1st, and a trip around the moon. Passing through 1,000 feet.
Houston Integrity, splashdown, sending post-landing command now.
Splashdown confirmed.
Copy Splashdown, waiting on VLDR.
Splashdown confirmed at 7:07 p.m. Central Time, 5:07 p.m. Pacific Time. From the pages of Jules Verne to a modern-day mission to the moon, a new chapter of the exploration of our celestial neighbor is complete. Integrity's astronauts back on Earth. And the landing and support officer reports the vehicle is stable 1. We still will be deploying the crew module uprighting system to maintain that orientation. A perfect bullseye splashdown for Integrity and its 4 astronauts. The unofficial splashdown time, 7:07 and 47 seconds p.m. Central Time. We'll get that refined for you. That would put the end of the mission at a mission elapsed time of 9 days, 1 hour, 31 minutes, 35 seconds. And we're configuring for very low data rate. Once again, splashdown occurring in the Pacific, southwest of San Diego at 7:07 and 47 seconds p.m.
Integrity Houston, comm check on VLDR.
Houston, we have you loud and clear on VLDR. How us?
We have you the same. We'll meet you over in post-landing.
Perfect communications established.
A journey. We are stable 1, 4 green crew members.
Houston copies all.
Reid Wiseman reporting 4 green crew members. That is not their complexion. That is the fact that they're in great condition. That's what that means. So stable 1, upright. The crew module uprighting system is being deployed. The 5 airbags being inflated through helium to maintain the upright configuration for the vehicle. This was a textbook entry and a textbook touchdown for Integrity. Reid Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Jeremy Hansen back on Earth after a journey around the moon. We continue to monitor the functioning of the CMOOS system. The airbags are being inflated to maintain a stable 1 or upright configuration. And there's a good view from one of the naval helicopters hovering overhead. Reid Wiseman reporting 4 green crew members, meaning they're all in excellent shape.
Integrity Houston for SAR beacon and radio.
SAR beacon is in for 06, and we're powering the radio now. Go ahead.
We see the beacon on. However, the recovery team is not seeing the signal. Your SAR radio uses the same antenna, so you may run into trouble with the radio.
copy. And we are also powering up the sat phone now.
So integrity is in great shape. And as the crew continues its post-splashdown timelined activities on board, Reid Wiseman once again reporting that all 4 crew members are in excellent shape. And we have 5 inflated airbags to maintain an upright configuration so that the recovery team can now begin a slow approach to the vehicle. Meanwhile, here in the flight control room, Entry Flight Director Rick Henfling is polling his team of flight controllers for the start of powering down the vehicle after a thorough systems check. We have no toxic gases to be concerned about, so the recovery personnel can approach the vehicle, but not until we have powered down the spacecraft. That's expected to take a few more minutes. Integrity back on Earth following its historic flyby of the moon. It was, for all intents and purposes, a textbook mission.
On 2828, but I'll remain on this frequency.
We copy.
Reid Wiseman indicating some trouble with the SARSAT phone on board. But that's not an issue. What is more important is that the vehicle is solid. No issues as we begin the power down of the vehicle to begin the recovery process. The propulsion officer here in Mission Control reports that we have safed the prop system on integrity.
Can you say again? That was very weak and broken.
Integrity, Houston did not call.
Copy that, Houston. It might have been on the SAR radio. Stand by.
All of the milestones were executed in perfect fashion. Integrity entering the Earth's atmosphere right on time, reaching its peak speed shortly after a blackout period began. We emerged from the blackout period, but the recovery imagery airborne assets were able to pick up Integrity's descent almost immediately through entry interface, tracking the vehicle all the way down. And finally, you saw the sequence of chute deployments. First, the forward bay cover being pulled off the top of the vehicle by a series of 3 parachutes. Then the drogue chutes were deployed, followed by the 3 main chutes that slowed the splashdown velocity of Integrity to just 19 miles an hour.
Integrity, Houston, with no joy on SAR and SAT phone, we'd like you to command an additional 15 minutes for a total of 30-minute power down delay.
All right, Jackie, we have selected T/D+30. No joy on SAR radio or sat phone. And stand by, we have the master diver on SAR radio. Please hold comms.
Hey, Lily, excuse me. Hey, Jackie, we just got the master diver on SAR.
A good view of one of the fast boats.
Integrity, Houston, if you are happy with your comm with master diver, you can go back to the 15-minute power down.
Okay, stand by. Yeah, we'll confirm here in a second.
The crew on board Integrity coordinating with the flight control team in Houston here in Mission Control on the timing of the power down of the vehicle, which will be the precursor to the recovery teams approaching the spacecraft. There are no issues with Integrity. We've had a bit of broken capability in establishing a SARSAT or satellite phone communications capability between the crew on board Integrity and the recovery team. That will get sorted out here shortly. There's plenty of cooling on board Integrity, so there's no rush to begin the power down.
I tried to call you on the sat phone and not getting an answer there either.
Concur, we haven't had anything come through.
And Houston, if you could relay to recovery that we hear them, but it does not appear as though they are hearing us.
Houston copies, and Reid, just to confirm, you are pushing the PTT on the radio.
So as we continue to sort out the communications between Integrity and the recovery teams, we are standing by for the initiation of the power down procedures that, as you see, the recovery teams are moving towards the side of the capsule. The next major event will be the erection of that large inflatable raft called the front porch. That will be the port of call for the crew as they're being extracted one by one from the vehicle.
Integrity, Houston, for sat phone, we are going to attempt to call you.
Good idea, standing by.
And Jackie, yes, we are pushing the push to talk, the two buttons on the left side of the radio below the up-down arrows. We are utilizing them. I'm rebooting the radio to see if we get good comms.
Okay, we copy all, and just to confirm, you are seeing that you're touchdown plus 3030 for power, correct?
That's affirmative.
We are trying a backdoor approach to have Mission Control here call the crew on their satellite phone. This is all part of the coordination for the power down of of the vehicle that will initiate the actual recovery operation. The first boats with the Navy divers on board are standing by, waiting to close in on Integrity to begin the process of erecting the large inflatable raft that's called the front porch that will be where the astronauts are extracted from so that they can have a few minutes to get their land legs back before they're hoisted aboard the Navy helicopters for the flight back to the deck of the USS John P. Murtha.
And Houston, please don't reply. NRD, very weak, but readable. Master diver, we can hear, but they cannot hear us. And Houston on OE1, is there any chance to tie us into NRD?
Checking.
This is Mission Control Houston. While we stand by for the establishment of communications between Integrity and the recovery team that is basically standing by very close to the spacecraft, we're going to go to the deck of the USS John P. Murtha, where Megan Cruz is standing by with Administrator Jeremy Hansen.
Hey, Rob, yeah, just such an honor to be able to be here on the ship, to be able to share and experience this moment with everyone together. And of course, as you just said, yes, here with NASA Administrator Jeremy Hansen. Administrator, how did you feel getting to witness this and seeing NASA at its best?
Oh, I mean, I'm honestly, I'm still at a loss for words. I mean, you know, like the childhood Jared right now can't believe what I just saw. I mean, almost been waiting my whole lifetime to see this. And then it's NASA Administrator. I just couldn't be more proud of the entire workforce, the years, the effort, the late nights, all the hard work from across the country that contributed to this incredible moment right now. And yeah, incredibly grateful too for our teams here on the John P. Murtha right now.
Yeah, look at the behind
us
here.
We got everybody. Hey, what do you guys think? We just brought some astronauts back from the moon, huh? Unbelievable. Thank you. Yeah, so grateful to the Navy, the sailors that are here, the NASA teams. I mean, this is a joint effort that's on their way right now. These recovery forces are getting out to our Orion spacecraft, to Integrity, to get our astronauts back on the ship safely.
Yeah, and this is not just an accomplishment for NASA. This is an accomplishment for humanity. Again, a historic mission to the moon and back. How does this make you feel, and what do you hope people take away from this?
Well, I'll tell you, you know, I think about the crew members that we've all had an opportunity to observe over the last 10 days, right? I mean, they're absolutely professional astronauts. I mean, wonderful communicators, almost poets. But then I think these were the ambassadors from humanity to the stars. stars that we sent out there right now, and I can't imagine a better crew than the Artemis II crew that just completed a perfect mission right now. So yes, it's a huge moment for everybody, right? I mean, we are back in the business of sending astronauts to the moon, bringing them back safely, and to set up for a series more. I mean, this is not a once in a lifetime, which you hear sometimes around here. It's like, this was a once in a lifetime. No, it's not. This is just the beginning. We are going to get back into doing this with frequency, sending missions to the moon until we land on it in 2028 and start building our base.
Yeah, are we going to build on the momentum for Artemis 3? I mean, it's just around the corner.
Absolutely. So, I mean, that's, you know, part of me too. Like, I can't wait to get the crew off of Integrity right now, but also getting Integrity back on this ship so we can start taking a look at it, because all that data is so precious to us right now. I mean, we are going to definitely want to take a good look at the thermal protection system. We're going to want to download all the data they couldn't transmit back to us and use that to inform Artemis 3. But we're already making progress, right? You had SRB segments already showing up at KSC. Core stage for Artemis 3 is rolling out on April 20th. We're getting Mobile Launcher 1 back in vehicle assembly building. So yes, there is a lot to celebrate right now on a mission well accomplished for Artemis 2, and at the same time, we got to start getting ready for 3.
Amazing. And last question, you know, for people who joined us for all 10 days to see what we can accomplish together with our international partners, what do you think about the fact that we're going to keep doing this more and more and more?
It's incredibly exciting. I mean, yes, it's the contributions, like the best and brightest across the NASA workforce from across the country, our industry partners, our international partners. We had a Canadian Space Agency astronaut on board in Jeremy. We had the European Service Module. And you think in the days leading up to this launch, I mean, 48 hours prior to launching Artemis 2, I was meeting with the Italian Space Agency. We signed a memorandum of understanding to build a habitation module on the moon. I mean, you have countries, all of our allies and partners coming together saying, we are committed to this effort. We are returning to the moon. We're doing it to stay. We are building that enduring presence. We are going to master the skills on the surface of the moon so someday we can undertake missions to Mars. It's just an incredibly exciting time, and we're not going at it alone. We're bringing everybody along with us.
Absolutely. And speaking of everyone, one more time, we're going to ask the crew here, you guys ready to land on the moon? Awesome. I love that. Okay, well, thank you so much, Administrator. Appreciate you being here. We're, of course, going to stay on to watch the crew get extracted from Orion, so stay tuned, and we'll see you back here shortly.
Thank you, Megan, and thank you, Administrator Isaacman. We are in the process of working to establish that communications link and to establish the procedures that will lead to the power down of the spacecraft, which is gently bobbing in the Pacific following a bullseye touchdown that occurred at 7:07 p.m. Central Time, 5:07 p.m. Pacific Time, 2.5 hours before sunset in the Pacific, southwest of San Diego. We have once again heard from the crew during that interview opportunity with the administrator, and we have 4 healthy crew members on board. We now have confirmation that the vehicle has been powered down as per the procedures. So we have vehicle powered down, and the flight control team here in Houston, Flight Director Rick Henfling, has handed over mission authority to the Exploration Ground Systems team out in the Pacific. Now, we will physically not get off console with this team until the crew has been extracted into the front porch, that inflatable raft that will be erected along the side hatch of Integrity. So we're standing by for that in the next step in the recovery procedures. But everything is in great shape, and we have 4 healthy crew members on board the vehicle. All of the entry events went by the book, no issues, perfect trajectory for Integrity that was culminated with one final raise burn to improve the angle of attack for the vehicle as it entered the Earth's atmosphere. All of that flight dynamics computation worked like a charm. So we are standing by for the recovery team to approach integrity and begin the process of erecting that inflatable raft called the front porch, which will see the crew members be extracted from the hatch of Orion into that inflatable raft before they're hoisted aboard two Navy helicopters in a variety of different configurations. Each crew member will be hoisted in sequential fashion, in alternating fashion, two crew members for each helicopter before they turn around to head back to the John P. Murtha. Once on the deck of the ship, they'll be brought into medical bay for comprehensive medical exams. But Reid Wiseman has reported several times that the crew is in excellent shape. So just to recap, it has been some 26 and a half minutes since the splashdown of integrity in the Pacific. The vehicle is in excellent shape. It performed like a champ all the way down through the Earth's atmosphere. All of the vehicle functions were checked off in excellent trip hammer fashion. The parachutes all deployed as planned. Splashdown occurring at 7:07 p.m. Central Time, 5:07 p.m. Pacific Time. And after a bit of a tussle to try to establish a communications link with the recovery team, we were finally able to run through the procedures for the powering down of the vehicle. We've handed over mission authority to the Exploration Ground Systems folks out in the Pacific, and the recovery team will be approaching the vehicle shortly to erect the inflatable raft called the front porch before opening the hatch to integrity to bring the crew members onto that raft before they're hoisted onto two Navy helicopters, two crew members for each helicopter, before they're flown back to the deck of the USS John P. Murtha. This is Mission Control Houston. After talking to the flight dynamics folks, we have a bit of a refinement on the splashdown time for you. Their computation shows a splashdown time of 7:07 and 27 seconds p.m. Central Time, 7:07 and 27 seconds p.m. Central Time. That would equate to a mission elapsed time of 9 days, 1 hour, 32 minutes, and 15 seconds. Once again, from Flight Dynamics, a splashdown time of 7:07 and 27 seconds p.m. Central Time. That would equate to a mission elapsed time of 9 days, 1 hour, 32 minutes, and 15 seconds. Reports from the Pacific indicate that the recovery team in communications with the crew aboard Integrity, that the crew remains in excellent shape as they await the approach of the team for a final hazard gas evaluation before they move to the side of the vehicle to erect the inflatable life raft called the front porch. Again, no issues with Integrity. The vehicle is powered down. All of its systems are now safed. We have handed over mission authority to the Exploration Ground Systems folks in the Pacific, but we will not stand down and have the entry flight control team depart its positions until that inflatable raft, the front porch, is erected, the hatch open, and the crew having exited the vehicle. So that's the next step in the recovery process that will lead to the hoisting of the crew members. For 2 crew members for each helicopter, they'll be hoisted to a pair of Navy helicopters that will then fly a short distance back to the USS John P. Murtha. What you're looking at is one of the fast boats circling the vehicle to make a hazard assessment. This is Mission Control Houston. Once again, you're watching the initiation of the recovery of the Artemis crew aboard Integrity. All of the Navy divers and the fast boats are now approaching the spacecraft after conducting a hazard assessment. The vehicle has been powered down. Entry Flight Director Rick Henfling now waiting for the life raft, the front porch, to be erected along the side of the vehicle so that the hatch can be opened and the crew members extracted from Integrity, soon to be hoisted one by one into a pair of Navy helicopters for a short flight back to the deck of the USS John P. Murtha. If you missed it earlier, we talked to Flight Dynamics and received a more official touchdown time or splashdown time, as it were, of 7:07 and 27 seconds p.m. Central Time, 5:07 and 27 seconds p.m. Pacific Time. That would equate to a mission elapsed time of 9 days, 1 hour, 32 minutes, and 15 seconds. Continuing to get excellent views from the imagery assets out at sea in the Pacific of Integrity. We continue to get good reports from the landing and support officer who's in contact with the recovery team that the crew is in excellent shape, no issues. They're just currently biding their time, waiting for the front porch to be erected. We have no hazardous hazard gases and no hazardous situation with the vehicle. It performed perfectly all the way down from entry interface to its splashdown in the Pacific at 7:07 and 27 seconds p.m. Central Time. And as you can see, the first phalanx of recovery personnel now pulling up alongside of Integrity. This includes Navy divers, a Navy flight surgeon, and other recovery personnel who have trained for several years for this recovery process. At this hour, some 41 minutes following splashdown, the vehicle has been powered down. There's no hazardous gas emanating from the vehicle. That's why the first team of recovery personnel has been able to pull alongside Integrity. And the reports continue to come in that the 4 astronauts are in excellent shape. Yes. This is Mission Control Houston, continuing to watch the initiation of the recovery of Integrity's astronauts. One by one, they'll be brought out of the spacecraft onto a large inflatable raft just a short time from now. In the meantime, we can go back to the USS John P. Murtha, where my colleague Megan Cruz is standing by to provide her situation report. Megan, can you hear us?
Hey, Rob. Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. Yeah, we're back here on the bow of the recovery ship where there are still plenty of people peering out into the water. We are not very far from the action everyone is seeing on their screen now. The Orion spacecraft, Integrity, in the ocean, surrounded by a number of recovery boats. As Rob has been saying, in those recovery boats, NASA and Navy personnel specifically trained to get the astronauts out of Orion. In some of our wide shots, you can probably see that there are 6 boats out in the water. More than 40 people out in the water right now on those boats. first order of business is to set up the front porch and the stabilization collar. You might also hear it referred to as a stab collar. Basically just to make sure that Orion stays upright, doesn't sway in the water too much, again, to make it easier for recovery forces to get the astronauts out. Splashed down to the Pacific Ocean just after 5 p.m. Pacific time here. It's a requirement by NASA to be able to get the crew out of Orion within 2 hours of splashdown. So doing great on time so far. Plenty of time. No rush either. I was speaking to NASA flight surgeon Rick Schuring earlier in this broadcast, and he said to me, no rush to get the crew out. Just want to make sure that they're feeling good. And whenever they're ready to take their step out of Orion and onto that large raft, the front porch, folks will be ready. Mission audio loops in Mission Control in Houston. There is a mission audio loop here on the ship, and it was just reported out that the side hatch is open. Side hatch of integrity is open. You're getting these beautiful shots from our aerial assets. The ship itself, where I'm on, just 3,000 yards away. Again, plenty of people on the boat here, glued to the side closest to where they can see all this action. And again, with just 3,000 yards separating us, great views from the bow here. You can see now that side hatch is open. One of the Navy personnel is about to get inside there. Total 4 will go into Orion. So it'll be a little bit of a tight squeeze, but the goal is to have a recovery personnel with each astronaut assessing them. Closer now. Again, that one that's right up against Orion, those are the divers that will go in to the spacecraft to check on each of the astronauts. These other boats will begin doing a number of things, putting on that stabilization collar onto Orion, building that front porch. Eventually, they will retrieve the parachutes, as well as tow Orion back to the well deck of the recovery ship here. And so as we wait for the Navy and NASA personnel to get their assessment of the crew inside of Orion, why don't we toss it back to Rob for an update?
Yeah, thank you, Megan. Here in Mission Control, Flight Director Rick Henfling and the entry team of flight controllers still on duty. The vehicle has been powered down for some time now. There are no hazardous gases emanating from integrity. That, of course, allowed the recovery personnel to approach the vehicle and then open the hatch to begin the initial medical assessment of the crew, as you just indicated. Now we're standing by for the erection of that inflatable raft, the front porch, alongside of the vehicle that will enable the crew to be extracted one by one onto the raft, have a moment or two to get their land legs back before they're hoisted into two hovering Navy helicopters, 2 crew members for each helicopter, for a short flight back to the deck of the USS John P. Murtha. All of Integrity's systems operated flawlessly throughout the course of the approach to the Earth, the entry into the Earth's atmosphere, and all of the key milestones that followed in this high-speed return to Earth for Integrity, a mission that spanned more than 694,000 miles from the vehicle's launch from the Kennedy Space Center atop the Space Launch System back on April 1st. As we mentioned at the top of the broadcast, the last time that the Apollo program saw a splashdown in the Pacific was Apollo 17 back on December 19th, 1972. So for the first time in some 53 and a half years, we have reenacted that with the arrival of Integrity's astronauts as they flew around the moon in that historic lunar flyby that began with a trans-lunar injection burn that took them out of Earth orbit following 24 hours of a high Earth orbit trajectory. The high Earth orbit trajectory enabled flight controllers here to have a full 24 hours to evaluate the systems on Integrity and the condition of the crew before they would commit to flying to the moon. With the side hatch of Orion having been opened to set the stage for the erection of the inflatable life raft, known as the front porch, to be erected alongside the spacecraft for the extraction of the crew. Let's play for you an interview that my colleague Megan Cruz conducted on the USS John P. Murtha with Navy diver First Class David McMahon that explains how this process is unfolding.
Okay, Davey, so you and some of your team, one last look over of the stabilization collar, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what is this stabilization collar?
This is what's going to stabilize the capsule out there in the ocean. We don't know how good the weather or the waves will be that day, so this will help prevent any unnecessary occurrences from happening, stabilizing the capsule and the astronauts inside.
So basically this is a float that will go around Orion. I'm assuming that what they're doing right now, these are the lines that will attach the collar onto Orion?
That is correct.
And so what are they doing here?
So we've got the lower line that will secure the inflation device before we inflate it. That gives us the go-ahead that it's secure in space, and then we'll inflate it. And then once that is done, we'll undo all the carabiners and get this orange line on top tied in the same fashion. And then this will be secured to the capsule, and the astronauts can safely take their first steps out of the capsule onto the front porch.
Okay, and how long will it take them to set up the stabilization collar?
We should definitely be able to handle this in under 10 minutes.
Okay, wow. And then you just mentioned the front porch. So basically after they set up this stabilization collar, then they set up what's called the front porch here.
That's correct.
Okay, and what's the front porch?
Front porch is basically a bigger waiting room for the astronauts to sit in while we wait for the helicopters to show up and grab them.
Okay, so the medical team that was inside with the crew, they're going to help them out and onto the front porch?
That is correct.
And then what happens here?
We have hired trained medical personnel also on board the front porch that will give them lookovers and just make sure they're okay while we wait for the helicopters to show up.
Okay. How does it feel, I mean, your team, you, to be part of a mission that's returning astronauts from the moon in more than 50 years?
We all feel extremely honored to be a part of this, as well as a bigger mission for the Navy and joining up with NASA to do great things.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel like you and your team are ready?
Yes, very ready.
Cool. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Once again, the recovery operations are continuing out in the Pacific. We shortly should see that life raft, the front porch, erected alongside the side hatch of the vehicle. A number of flight controllers have come into the flight control room to receive congratulations from Entry Flight Director Rick Henfling. But we're going to stick with our operations out in the Pacific as we await the extraction of the 4 crew members who are reported to be in excellent condition. Again, while we stand by for that front porch to be erected alongside of the side hatch of the vehicle, let's go back to the USS John P. Murtha and Megan Cruz. Megan?
Hey, Rob. Pausing now to listen to some internal audio loops. Again, the operations team here on the ship communicating with everyone out on the water. It seems like currents are hindering them a little bit from unfurling and inflating the stabilization collar as well as the front porch. But again, the requirement to get the crew out within 2 hours of splashdown, plenty of time. So no concerns just yet. But as calm as the water looks, yeah, it looks like it's hindering the teams just a tad. You can see in some of our shots, that side hatch still open. Again, inside, there are now 8 people inside. 4 divers, Navy divers, all with medical training, each assigned to an astronaut each. Making sure that they're comfortable, feeling good. As you've heard us say in the broadcast, they expect a little bit of discomfort. Again, these astronauts just traveled back to Earth at 25,000 miles an hour, a nearly 695,000-mile journey around the moon. If you think you get carsick. Again, 6 boats out there, lots of gear with them, just in case, right? As we said, the crew reported feeling great. But again, all those folks out there, in case they weren't, right? NASA is all about making sure we think about every situation that can happen. And so, of course, wanted to be ready in case any of our astronauts needed more medical attention while out there in the water. You see now teams, again, trying to set up the stabilization collar and front porch for the crew to get out of Orion. They need both, right? The stabilization collar will keep Orion from swaying as you see it is doing now. And then they will connect the front porch to the stabilization collar so that the crew can take 2 steps and they will be in the front porch. Chatter on the mission audio loops, that's a good thing. Again, things proceeding pretty nominally, even if they're fighting some currents out there on the Pacific Ocean. Again, the goal, setting up the stabilization collar and the front porch so that the crew can rest comfortably in the front porch, get placed into harnesses so that 2 helicopters can lift them off the front porch and onto the USS John Murtha here. The helicopters are going to take turns picking up an astronaut. So again, Helo 1 and Helo 2. Okay, and the recovery team here on the ship just got a report from the undersea medical officer who is inside the capsule with the crew. He is reporting all 4 members are green. All of our 4 astronauts, Reid, Victor, Christina, Jeremy, green, meaning they are feeling great, not the complexion of their skin. They are feeling great, happy to be home, and ready to be extracted as soon as possible. And so, as I was saying, we have 2 helicopters circling the activity you're seeing on the water right now. Each will take turns picking up an astronaut. So Helo 1 will come on in, hover above the front porch, about 40 feet above the front porch. A Navy recovery specialist will be hoisted down into the front porch.
The restricted maneuvering doctrine is in effect.
Will connect to the first astronaut, which we're expecting to be Christina. And then Helo 2 comes around, picks up Jeremy, while Helo 1 stays above head, and then Helo 1 will come back in for another astronaut, and then Helo 2 for the last astronaut, and then back to the flight deck here on the recovery ship. I was talking to Assistant Artemis Recovery Director Paul Sierpinski. He said helos are a much quicker, safer way to get on board. They did actually consider boats, but then if you think about it, longer time, the crew would have to move through more of the ship. This way the helos will give a more direct, quicker route to the medical bay for our 4 astronauts. Beautiful shots from our aerial and imagery teams. Clouds have dissipated for a clear view from the bow of the recovery ship here. Still see divers in the water there. And circling Orion, that is that stabilization collar we've been telling you about. As you saw in that interview just a few minutes ago, they have to first connect it to Orion, and then once it's secured onto Orion, they can inflate it, and then they'll further secure it with other harnesses and lines. About an hour and 10 minutes since splashdown in the Pacific Ocean here. Christina and Jeremy back home after a history-making mission to the moon and back. What we said just a couple of minutes ago, the undersea medical officer inside with the crew in Orion, reporting all 4 crew members feeling great. Progress being made there on the stabilization collar. It looks like they are beginning to inflate it. Looks like they're starting to unfold the front porch in order to get that into the water here shortly and inflate that as well. Again, more than 40 people out in the water right now. Those Navy and NASA personnel have been in the water for now about 4 hours. To get out so early is just to stage everything. And actually here on the ship, when there are flight operations happening, you can't have anything else, right? Just because the flight deck can be a dangerous place, so they just want to focus on planes coming and going from the ship, so that's why they wanted to get the boats in the water to make sure that they have all the time they needed for the flight ops. And then the same crew here out in the water, they will stay out in the water for a number of hours after we recover the crew and get them back on the ship, because then they have to recover Orion. All right, that stabilization collar looking good around Orion. We're now seeing some recovery personnel getting on to that collar. Again, they need to further attach it to Orion to make sure that it can really prop up the spacecraft. It's basically lifting it up off of the water just a tad. Again, so it's not so it doesn't sway so much in the water there. And now that front porch looks like it's nearly fully inflated as well. You can see a much larger surface area. So once the crew get out of Orion, they can stretch their legs a little bit on this front porch, get some fresh air. And enjoy this beautiful day here on their home planet. Teams now are about to connect the front porch to the stabilization collar. And at that point, when both are secure, we should soon see astronauts come out of Orion. You see also being fed to the Landing Force Operations Center here on the ship. Of course, it is very important for our recovery teams leading the mission to have all the views that you're seeing as well. Again, listening to their communication loop here on the ship. Very quiet, which is a good thing. It means things are going pretty nominally, meaning as expected. Activity happening just 3,000 yards away from the ship. So that means this will be a very quick flight back on the helicopters for the crew. 2-3 minutes, and then they'll be back here on the ship.
I know.
Okay, saw a thumbs comes up from one of the personnel on the front porch. It looks like they are now getting ready to deploy what they call the Air Rescue Vest, ARV. And so this is the harness that each crew member will get into in order to be hoisted into the helicopters. Again, those helicopters hovering just about 40 feet above the front porch when they're ready to pick up each crew member.
This is Mission Control Houston. Behind me, a fairly raucous scene as hundreds of flight controllers have poured into the flight control room here. This is reminiscent of the scene after the final shuttle mission of STS-135, although that was the end of a program. This is only the beginning of a program with the textbook splashdown of integrity and its 4 astronauts. We're standing by for the crew to be extracted from the spacecraft. Entry Flight Director Rick Henfling invited all of these flight controllers who have contributed to this mission to enter the flight control room to have an opportunity to receive well wishes and to share the mutual glow that exists in the wake of a textbook mission for integrity. On the front screen here in Mission Control, a sign that says, "Welcome home, Integrity, taking humanity back to the moon, going further, and returning safely to Earth." So all of that jubilation, part of the post-splashdown activities, even as we await the crew being extracted from the vehicle to be hoisted onto Navy helicopters for the trip back to the USS John P. Murtha. Once again here in Mission Control, this view of the Artemis Flight Control Room, known as the White Flight Control Room. This is the old shuttle flight control room, and now is the home of Artemis missions to the moon and beyond. Once again, quite a few flight controllers were invited in by Entry Flight Director Rick Henfling to share in the jubilation following the successful splashdown of integrity. That splashdown occurring an hour and 22 minutes ago, as we stand by for the completion of the extraction of the crew, and ultimately they're hoisting onto Navy helicopters for a short flight back to the USS John P. Murtha. Splashdown occurred at 7:07 and 27 seconds p.m. Central Time. I had an opportunity to talk to the head of flight dynamics, Jeff Birch, a moment or two ago. He said the trajectory of Integrity coming through the Earth's atmosphere was so precise, they've never seen anything line up on a ground track like today's entry by Integrity for its splashdown southwest of San Diego. And the initial, you can hear it. Jubilation here in the flight control room. The first crew member is out of Integrity. We are expecting the other crew members momentarily to be extracted. We now have 2 crew members out. Two crew members out, 2 to go. We're about 1 hour from sunset out in the Pacific. Everything continues to go well. Integrity's systems function perfectly during its entry back to Earth. And Reid Wiseman, the commander who will be last out of the vehicle, reported that all the crew members were feeling very well. Crew member number 3 now out. And now standing by for the commander, Reid Wiseman, who will be last out of his ship. Bobbing in the Pacific under almost ideal conditions, Integrity spanned 694,000 miles during its journey from launch to splashdown. And we now have Reid Wiseman out of the vehicle, all 4 crew members now out of Integrity. Once again, all 4 crew members now on the front porch, and the procedure to begin hoisting them up to these 2 Navy helicopters hovering overhead will begin shortly. This is Mission Control Houston. The mission is over, but the melody lingers on as jubilation continues here in the flight control room. We should be expecting NASA's Associate Administrator, Amit Kshatriya, to be joining us shortly for a short interview while the recovery operations continue out in the Pacific. So we'll stand by for that. And then we'll turn it back over to Megan Cruz aboard the USS John P. Murtha. This is Mission Control Houston here in the Artemis Flight Control Room. A number of flight controllers basking in the glory of the successful end of this mission that carried 4 astronauts around the moon on a lunar flyby, and the first test flight of Orion with crew members on board. Splashdown occurring an hour and 32 minutes ago after a flawless descent back into the Earth's atmosphere for the vehicle. Its 4 crew members in good shape, simply enjoying their time right now on the front porch, as it were, the inflatable raft alongside of their Integrity spacecraft. We're expecting Amit Kshatriya, the NASA Associate Administrator, to join us here momentarily for a brief interview before we turn it back over to Megan Cruz aboard the USS John P. Murtha, the recovery ship. This is Mission Control Houston. We're about an hour and 34 minutes since the textbook splashdown of integrity in the Pacific to bring home our astronauts. And with us now is Amit Kshatriya, the NASA Associate Administrator. Amit, a little bit of history made tonight, a little bit of history made over the past few weeks. Your thoughts as this team here basks in the glow of what they just accomplished?
Yeah, Rob, we're here in the control center, and it's kind of overrun with jubilant folks from the Mission Control Houston, as well as engineering, and folks that just want to be here, part of it, as we watch our crew get extracted from the vehicle. And, you know, my thought is always about these teams, the team that's in the water right now, pulling the crew out, the team here in Houston that worked so hard over the last 10 days, no sleep to get this done. You know, we still have some work to do to get the crew to the med bay here on the ship. They all look great coming out, so hopefully that won't be too long. You know, I think we saw the administrator on the boat too, giving his thanks to the Navy team on the Myrtha, which they're just an incredible group of sailors. I was able to visit with them a couple weeks ago. And then if you pull it all the way back to the workers and the folks that joined the rocket at Michoud, that made the heat shield tiles that held together tonight, that stacked the vehicle in Florida, that integrated the vehicle in Denver, that fired the engines in Stennis, that fired the boosters in Promontory. I mean, this is the entire team, you know, coming together and being tested by the environment that this machine went through. And they did it right. The work was good. They did it right.
You've said in a number of briefings, of course, and in other forums that this is just the first step. The cadence has to step up, as the administrator has indicated. Now, it's a little early for the full report card on how integrity did, but did this mission ultimately, from your eyes view, exceed expectations?
It absolutely did. I mean, I was waiting to talk about this until we were in the water, and, you know, I think we still have, again, work to do to bring it in and really kind of go through it bolt by bolt and see what we learned. But, I mean, so far, given what we learned during the mission and given how we performed on ascent, on entry, you know, I always think about energy in terms of the states that you worry about the most, and every time we put these machines through these incredibly energetic states, they came through. So I'm fairly confident that we made a big step tonight to get us on the path towards the surface. I think the path to the surface is open now. You know, we do have to do all the work, and we'll make sure we talk about that as cleanly as we can. We learned a few things during the mission, but I have to tell you, this was an incredible test of an incredible machine.
From an American psyche standpoint, the Empire State Building was lit up red, white, and blue tonight. Our coverage was seen on baseball stadiums around the major leagues. How captivating was this experience for the American people, for the world, in fact, as we returned to the moon?
You know, I have not been able to watch a lot of the coverage as we've progressed through the mission. I will tell you, just, you know, from my witness in Florida before launch, and then seeing the people's faces here, and then, you know, reading where I can about how things are going. I think this has been a gift to the world from NASA. NASA has given the world a gift, proving to folks all over the place, especially young people, and that to me is what this is really about. Young people, when they see what we can do when we work together, when we have teams that collaborate, that, you know, it doesn't matter how hard the problems are, we can solve them. I'm hopeful that Artemis 2, as folks witness what we were able to do with this incredible crew, this incredible team that we've birthed into the world, scientists and engineers and artists that have been inspired by this. And even if they don't come work in the program, which separately they should come work in the program, because Lord knows we need the help, but even if they don't want to come work in the program, hopefully they grow up to recognize they can do amazing things when they work together and contribute to society and be good citizens and really change the way, you know, the challenges that are coming in the world are overcomable if we work together like this.
And one final question. You know, flying to the moon, we did it. We've done it again this past week and a half or so. But the engineering that went behind the design of this mission and the precision, the pinpoint precision of this vehicle entering that entry corridor, it's almost mind-boggling.
Yeah, it is incredible when you think about the energies involved and the uncertainties involved. That when we inserted the vehicle into orbit, it was 99.2% down the middle. When we dropped the vehicle right on top of the fleet here, you know, our guys knew exactly where to go, but the guidance was perfect. You know, and it's interesting. I've got this question a lot over the last few weeks about, you know, we did this before 53 years ago, and you know that. I think, I mean, it is a reasonable thing to contemplate, like what's gone on since then. And what I'd tell you is, you know, when we did Apollo, which again, the more we learn about what they did, the more magical it seems what they were able to accomplish given the technology and the learnings that they had. But when we did Apollo, the architects of Apollo, you know, Gilbert, Seaman, von Braun, Mueller, what they really wanted to do, you know, as they were contemplating what it meant to expand our range of action to the lunar surface, what they wanted to do was learn how to live and work in space for a long time. They wanted to do that first before they were confident they could expand their range of action to the moon. Now, of course, the politics of the time and the mission at the time was different, and so they had to go straight to the moon and bring people home. And then after that, the program kind of lost its momentum. But, you know, after that, NASA kept moving along those paths, right? So we recognized during Apollo that reusability was going to be important. We spent a lot of money on those machines, and you know, we spent a lot of money on these machines here, even though, but we recognized that reusability was important, which is why we built a winged space plane called Space Shuttle, and then we used that reusable machine to build a space station. And we learned for 25 years how to live and work in space, and have been able to develop technologies that can enable exploration. So really, what I think is now, 53 years later, we're at the point where the architects of Apollo would have been pleased that we're now ready to actually go back to the moon and go back to stay, because we've learned all the things we needed to learn.
There's a lot of people pleased here tonight, and we really thank you for joining us. Amit Kshatriya, NASA's Associate Administrator, as we begin to hoist the crew onto the helicopters to head back to the recovery ship. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob.
Congratulations, Amit. This is Mission Control Houston, with the crew members now beginning to be hoisted aboard the Navy helicopters. Let's go to Megan Cruz aboard the USS John P. Murtha, who will take it from here.
Hey, Rob. Yeah, back on the bow of the ship here, we are seeing the helicopters circling Orion. The first one there, having just completed picking up the first astronaut. Helo 2 now, hovering just 40 feet above the front porch, lowering a recovery specialist out of the helicopter. That person will touch down in the front porch just there. The crew members already outfitted with a harness that will allow them to quickly attach to the hoisting device. Look at the power of those blades throwing water out at the center there, the front porch, with now 3 astronauts and the recovery specialists. Again, crews already outfitted with a harness vest. And here we go. Second astronaut now off the front porch, getting hoisted into the second helicopter. That helicopter will now hover just a distance away to give room for the first helicopter to come back and pick up the third astronaut. As we wait for that helicopter to come back, make its way back around, just want to mention that the President of the United States called our NASA administrator today while he was on the ship, just minutes after we interviewed him live on our coverage, and congratulated him and NASA on this history-making moment tonight. Helicopter 1 again hovering 40 feet over the front porch. We will soon see another recovery specialist getting lowered onto the front porch. Wow, imagine sitting on that front porch, the wind, the water. But again, the recovery team determined that a helicopter flight back to the ship here would be safer, faster, and more comfortable for our crew who just completed a 10-day mission around the moon. Third astronaut in the air, getting hoisted quickly back into the first helicopter now. First helicopter now on its way back to the ship here. We will soon see it land in just a few minutes. Again, all this action happening just 3,000 yards away from us, so a very quick flight back to the flight deck. And now the only person left on the front porch, Commander Reid Wiseman. That second helicopter now making its way back over to the front porch. Here it comes. Making its final approach here. Astronaut, Commander Reid Wiseman, now off the front porch and almost into the second helicopter. Both now on their way back to the ship where we are, the USS John P. Murtha, just west of San Diego in the Pacific Ocean. Exciting to see our 4 crew members minutes away from landing on the flight deck here on the recovery ship. 550 people on this ship, excited, ready, anxious, looking forward to welcoming this crew aboard. Watching them now with our own eyes. Close to the ship here. Hearing them begin to hover on the flight deck, which is just across from us, here on the bow. The first helicopter coming in. First helicopter carrying 2 of our Artemis II crew. Pilot Victor Glover and mission specialist Christina Koch. Helo 1 on deck reported on the recovery loop. Again, the mission audio loops that the recovery team are using here to communicate with one another. And an announcement just made on the ship. Integrity incoming. 2 more helicopters on their way to the flight deck, one carrying the crew, the other, one of our imagery helicopters. Again, kudos to our imagery and aerial teams for giving us these beautiful views of history in the making. Set amid a gorgeous, soon-to-be sunset here in the Pacific Ocean. Second helicopter making its approach of the flight deck. Plenty of people here on the bow with their cell phones out, filming this moment. Flying here by the Navy as we are seconds away from wheels down. And there you go. We now have all 4 Artemis II crew members on the USS John P. Murtha. I'm sure they're happy to be out of the water and on this recovery ship with, again, 550 people on board, ready to welcome them home. But first, as we've been saying throughout the broadcast, just making sure the crew feel good. We reported that they were feeling good when they were in Orion, but those were just initial, quick, verbal assessments of how they're feeling. Their destination tonight, the medical bay here on the ship, right after we power down the helicopters here. The team on the flight deck working quickly but methodically. For just one more helicopter to touch down. Very limited personnel here on the flight deck.
Restricted maneuvering doctrine is in effect.
As that third helicopter touches down. Just a few folks on the flight deck itself. There are plenty more on some upper decks. I see in some of our views a very packed crowd overhead. Announcements being made over the ship's loudspeaker system, reminding folks to stay clear of operational areas like the flight deck, so that teams can work quickly to get the crew off of the helicopters and into the medical bay. Splashdown today, 5:06 p.m. Pacific time. We are within 2 hours of that splashdown time, and already we have all 4 crew members on the flight deck of the USS John P. Murtha. Again, crew waiting before getting out for the helicopters to completely shut down. Safety, of course, very important to NASA and the U.S. military. So we'll wait just a couple of minutes here before we start seeing crew members walk off the helicopters one by one. All right, and now here we see pilot Victor Glover and mission specialist Christina Koch sitting on the edge of one of the helicopters, looking in great spirits. That familiar smile and laugh from Victor, I can see it from here. Christina, I'm sure, feeling the same way, just blocked a little bit by our camera here, but we'll see her here shortly. A photographer taking their pictures. Victor saluting folks on the flight deck. They look like they're in great spirits. Happy to be home, I'm sure. If you're sitting at home, I hope you too are wondering, what would you want to ask them if you got a chance to talk to them? Because that is what I'm thinking about. Getting the opportunity to talk to or ask questions of these 4 astronauts who just made history as the first crew to return to the moon since 1972. Oh, there we see Christina there, also smiling. Finally peering out, waving at the cameras. Hello to you too, Christina, yes. Welcome back. Welcome, welcome home. A loudspeaker announcement on the ship saying, "Welcome home, Integrity." Victor in great spirits. I can't see who he's talking to, but I kind of think that he might be talking to his other 2 crew members. Shouting from across the flight deck, congratulations to one another. And so now we see some Navy personnel walking up to the helicopter. This is again the first helicopter carrying pilot Victor Glover and mission specialist Christina Koch. Both have taken off their helmets now. Some pictures, video to catalog this historic moment. A beautiful sunset just behind them here in the Pacific Ocean. Golden hour. These pictures will be beautiful. we see NASA Administrator Jeremy Hansen. He is on the flight deck, as well as Flight Surgeon Rick Schuring walking over to Victor and Christina first. We saw the administrator walk over to the other helicopter, which is carrying Commander Reid Wiseman and Mission Specialist Jeremy Hansen. We heard from Rick earlier in the broadcast. Again, he said he's going to be out there on the flight deck to do another initial assessment of the crew, ask them how they're feeling, anything bothering them. But again, from what I'm seeing, they look like they're in great spirits and feeling pretty good for folks who just traveled 695,000 miles from Florida to the moon and now here to the Pacific Ocean. Seeing NASA Administrator Jeremy Hansen walking across the flight deck. He had been talking to Reid and Jeremy, now approaching Victor and Christina. A hug from Victor, a hug from Christina. What a moment that we're getting to experience together. I'm sure congratulatory words. You know, we got to speak to the administrator live on this broadcast as well, and he said the kid in him right now, giddy, absolutely giddy at what we were able to accomplish today. Returning them home safely and in good spirits after a 10-day mission around the moon. And here we go. We're seeing Jeremy walking, waving across the flight deck, now on his way to the medical bay. It's a short walk, less than a minute. Again, that's why the recovery team decided to use helicopters to get them on the flight deck for that short walk to medical bay. And now on the flight deck, we see the chief of the astronaut office, Scott Tingle, Rick Schuring switching places. He's going over to the other helicopter. Big hugs from Victor, Christina to Scott. Again, a gorgeous sunset setting the stage for this recovery tonight. And now here we are, Christina, making her way, looking thankful, grateful, happy to be home. You can see she's looking up. Again, lots of people, just a few levels up off the flight deck, welcoming her home. Scott holding the door like a gentleman, but back on his way to the other crew still on the flight deck. So still on the flight deck, Victor Glover and Reid Wiseman. Looks like Victor will be the next one headed to medical bay. More hugs, more hugs. He's a hugger. Victor looking good as he walks across the flight deck. NASA administrator applauding. Victor applauding for all the folks on the ship with him who played a role in their safe return today. currently just one Artemis II crew member left on the flight deck, Commander Reid Wiseman. Applause from the group there on the flight deck, I'm sure, as well as on the level just above them, packed with people. Reid looking good as he takes his steps towards the medical bay. See our 4 Artemis II crew members back on the ship. Again, now they will head into medical bay, where they will be assessed by flight surgeons from both NASA as well as the Canadian Space Agency. A more in-depth assessment. When they get to medical bay, they will each have their own nurse. They will be helped out of their suits. And then again, we'll check to see that they're feeling good. Make sure it's not just adrenaline, but that they are feeling good from their long journey back from the moon. Beautiful shot of that sunset, illuminating our flight deck. Astronauts safely on board, I want to welcome on Artemis Recovery Director Lily Villarreal. Lily, I don't know how you must be feeling right now. Ecstatic, relieved?
So ecstatic, relieved. Of course, we still have to bring the capsule into the well deck of the ship, but this is a major milestone to have the crew here on the ship and in medbay. You know, our team has been preparing and working really hard, and I'm just so proud of them all. Everything went very well, just as planned. Our teammates in Houston, the flight control team was just amazing. We were able to have great conversations and communications about everything. And I don't know what else to say. I'm just so ecstatic. It's such a wonderful feeling to get to this point. Again, we still have to get the capsule, but this is huge for all of us in landing recovery. And I couldn't do this without my team, and of course the full support of the U.S. military. There's going to be lots of, you know, high fives when we get the capsule back in, and I'm so happy that the crew's doing well, Orion's doing well, and you know, thank you for, you know, for everybody watching.
Yeah, it was great to watch the crew come back to the ship with you. How were you feeling when you were seeing them looking so happy to be home and feeling really good?
You know, the funny thing is that we had video of them from inside the Orion vehicle. They were like that from the beginning. When we opened the hatch, they were already out of their seats, having a good time, waiting for us to open the hatch. And they opened the hatch, and of course we did the first medical assessment. Everybody was doing very well, and they were just having such a great time with the medical team that was inside the capsule. I think they were all taking selfies with you know, the phones that they have, probably talking about what they saw, and it was just smiles all around. They were having such a great time. And then we put them on the front porch when we were ready to put them on the front porch. And again, you could see they were just so ecstatic to be home and talking to everybody. So we were very happy to see all of that in the control room of the LFOC.
How remarkable is that? Again, if we think about their journey, the 695,000-mile journey around the moon and back, coming back at 30 times faster than the speed of sound. I mean, how remarkable is that they are in such good spirits?
I mean, this is an amazing crew. I think you guys have seen it for the past 10 days. They're wonderful wonderful people, and we're so happy that they brought us along on that ride. And I can't wait to see all the additional videos and pictures that they have that, you know, we'll get a hold of now that they're back on the ground. And I can't wait to hear how, you know, a little more than what we saw on the press briefings from the crew about what they saw. It's just fantastic. You know, some of my favorite people during this 10 days was the science team and how excited they were. And so this is exactly how we feel in the landing recovery team when the science team went, oh my goodness, when they heard all the discussions about the moon. This is exactly how we feel now in the landing recovery team. We're so ecstatic. Yeah. Again, we have to recover the capsule. I want to make sure we don't forget about our Orion.
Lily's all about business. She's thinking about what's next. But yeah, speaking of these 10 days, I mean, we have been along for the journey with them, live with them 24/7 for 10 days, and just really seeing the engagement that we've gotten from around the world. What do you hope people take away from this mission?
I think that's fantastic. So, you know, my story was that I went to the Kennedy Space Center. I was born in Colombia. I was 10 years old when we moved to the United States, but when I was 7, my family took me to the visitor center, and that's when I learned about Apollo. And we went to the moon, and I learned about astronauts, and that story was what really fueled me to want to do STEM and want to be an astronaut. And I think that this Artemis program is going to do exactly what, you know, what girls, you know, my age back then is 7, young people right now, girls and even like young men, obviously. But we want to empower people to know that you can do this, right? If you want to come and work for NASA, if I did it, they can do it. And Artemis program is just going to inspire everybody, and I'm so happy about that. Yeah. Like Apollo inspired me.
Thank you so much, Lily. Really appreciate you being here. As you said, still a lot of work to do, 5 to 6 more hours to recover Orion that's still out in the water. So I'll let you get back to it. But you had beautiful words to say again. We hope that this inspires people. We hope that you come and join us at NASA and accomplish great things with us in the future. Back to you, Rob.
Thank you, Megan, and safe sailing out there in the Pacific. Here in Mission Control, it is now all quiet. The team of flight controllers and all their support personnel have left the room to enjoy the aftermath of a textbook touchdown by Integrity that splashed down in the Pacific right on target to complete this historic flyby of the moon, the Artemis II mission. With that, we'll wrap up our coverage for the night and point you to a post-splashdown news conference in 15 minutes at 9:35 p.m. Central Time, 10:35 p.m. Eastern Time, where managers will discuss the return of the Integrity spacecraft and the completion of the Artemis II mission. With that, we'll wrap up our coverage for this evening and historic mission in the history books. This is Mission Control Houston. Main chute deploy. And we have 3 good main chutes.
Integrity splashdown, sending post-landing command now.
Splashdown confirmed.
Copy splashdown, waiting on VLDR.
Splashdown confirmed at 7:07 p.m. Central Time, 5:07 p.m. Pacific Time.